And then there were 70. The long process to eNASCAR glory reaches the starting marker of the next arduous journey to reap $500,000 in winnings. We're live from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway. We welcome you to the highly anticipated opener of round number 2 in the 2024 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. And welcome then to our continuing coverage on FTN. We give you a warm welcome from inside the broadcast booth, where I have a great set of friends alongside me for this one, alongside Alexander Balderas and eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver for Joe Gibbs Racing, Daniel Falkingham. I'm Kenneth Bueno. Now, Alex, we'll start with you. We have been a month removed from our last race at Charlotte to close off round number 1. We decided the 70 that advanced. All of the drivers, all of the teams have had the opportunity to digest their advancement and now focus on the next step ahead in what's still a long journey to eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series eligibility, and it all starts tonight.
And I gotta say, I'm excited to see what these new trucks can do with the new updates that have been found. And we got out of a hot step off of the last, was about a month ago, Brian Mercurio and Christopher M. Hill really showing us off the top 2 in points right now. And a strong return to Road to Pro, Joe M. Armstrong, unclear going in, is 4th in points after the last round 8 of 8 in the first phase of Road to Pro.
And Daniel, we turn to that point that Alex just made about the new truck updates that came our way in June with the iRacing season build. It's going to be a new challenge for these teams. Now, they've had a little while to, of course, understand what these new physics updates are about, but there are still a lot of unknowns in the open setup world, and most notably in eNASCAR competition. It surely will affect the drivers and the teams as they try to get a handle of these trucks at Chicagoland tonight.
Very much so. After talking with a lot of people that have been putting a lot of time into Chicagoland, a lot of time into this new aero updates that have been given to the truck, I've been hearing some people have been liking it, some people have not. I've been hearing track position is even more important. Dirty air is a little bit worse, and being up front in that clean air is going to be more important than ever. So I am very excited to see how it's going to play out when you bring the competition together. We're gonna split. We're gonna have 2 splits, snake split. Some guys will be in one split, some guys will be in the other split. So I'm looking forward to see the mix of competition we're gonna have, and to see these 70 Road to Pro drivers go and attack Chicagoland Speedway tonight with the new aero update. So it's gonna be a very mixed bag tonight, that's for sure.
We'll talk about that as well, the way this race is split in 2. Of course, back in round 1, it was all just based on splits decided by iRating. But of course, when you whittle the field down from maybe thousands, hundreds of drivers to just 70, you've got a chance to split each segment in 1 and 2 between 35 drivers, all in snake splits. So you do get a chance to have a little more variety in who goes in what race. And of course, we'll have split 2's coverage. Technically, this is our second snake split of Road to Pro coverage that we'll have tonight from Chicagoland, but of course we'll see a different cast every single race, which means that it'll be a lot of fun. Let's take a look at the schedule first before we dive into the further details of what this race will encounter for us, Alex. And we start here at a very difficult track to drive, Chicagoland Speedway, which opened back in 2001, and not a current active NASCAR track, but it is probably the best trendsetter for beginning of round 2, and the rest of the schedule way different than the first round.
Absolutely, you go, and then to the mountains of Pocono in Pennsylvania. Now, the Tricky Triangle, as it's known, is one of the toughest racetracks, especially for Road to Pro. We saw an amazing battle last year that saw Briar LaPrade get the win. And then after that, it's a short track in week 3 in Lucas Oil Raceway Park, 120 laps. That will be grueling. A couple of short tracks on this new schedule for round 2, the second phase of Road to Pro, and these new drivers are going to have a lot of work on their hands. Dan, what can you tell us about the rest of the schedule?
Yeah, you see, we got a mix of we got a lot of different variety of racetracks. So I remember looking back here at round 1, we had a lot of 1.5 mile racetracks with a short track mix in there as well. Here we got a 1.5 mile, then we got the big triangle of Pocono, we got a short track, we got a few more 1.5 miles. And then look at that. Right smack dab in the middle, our only road course of the entire season at Watkins Glen International. So you got a mix of your short tracks, you got a mix of your road courses, you got to sprinkle in a little bit of a road course right there, I should say. You got some 1 mile racetracks with the Milwaukee Mile sitting right there. And then you got the very difficult Rockingham and then Homestead Miami Speedway to round out the season. So if you're going to make it through to the Contender Series when it's all said and done, you're going to have to go through a variety of racetracks, a really good mix of racetracks that's really going to test these drivers one way or another.
Yeah, this is way different from what we encountered in round one. And you and I, Daniel, talked about it a lot, the fact that we had some mile-and-a-half tracks in round one, Las Vegas, then Atlanta, then Texas. You look at Charlotte to close off round number one. A lot of them came down to full-throttle tracks that depended a lot on draft, and some of them had a little more tire wear than others, but you look deep into round two in this schedule, and you don't have a single identical track on the schedule. Of course, Chicagoland and Homestead, they're both similar 1.5-mile tracks, but you look at everything in between, and it really gives you probably the most diverse test for these drivers as they look to encounter the eNASCAR Contender Series later on this fall. So it'll show you that the best teams, the best drivers will rise to the top in this 2024 calendar. Now let's talk about the Road to Pro ladder, and this has changed a little bit. Daniel, you talked to us about it, but what is it that encounters the drivers here? Because round one was the first test, round two is the second. Of course, with that goal to make it to Contender, then of course the Coke Series for 2025.
Yeah, so as you said, we have gotten past the first round of the Road to Pro ladder. Now we're into round two, which I believe is the most difficult round to get through because of the mix of drivers you're going to be battling each and every week compared to the Contender Series, where you're going to be racing the same people each and every race. But now here's what's different. As you see on our screen where it says the Contender Series, at the end of the season, the top 20, or at the end of the Contender Series, will transfer. That's not, it's going to be a little bit different because as you can see, it's not shown here, but what's different from what I've been hearing is it's going to be the top 30 going to be advancing from Contender to go put into a free agency pool with 50 drivers in total to get picked out of free agency to make it to the Coke Series in 2025, where 40 will be able to race and 10 will be backup drivers. We'll have to touch a little bit more on that as we get closer to the Contender Series, but yeah, just a little bit of a shakeup compared to 1 year ago.
It is pretty different from what it used to be before, and I think that's taken many drivers and teams by storm 100%, and it's definitely taken them for a little loop. They have to understand the rules just like we do, and we're going to try to give you all of the updating information as things roll forward. And right now we've got qualifying roughly 4 minutes before we get to the start of tonight's race from Chicagoland. But Alex, let's talk a little more about this famous 1.5.
And you're right about that. Length at about 1.52 miles or 2.4 kilometers. 18 degrees of banking in the turns, 11 in the tri-oval. And it opened in 2001 with NASCAR Cup Series racing, last being there in 2018, if my facts are correct. Chicagoland is, I think, one of the best ovals on the service. I got introduced to this track by a very good friend of mine, and Terrell Day. He was showing me the ropes, and this is a great track to learn how to drive a tough oval. It's very bumpy, yet it's very high speed, and those are some of the things that I think will play into a good hand of the strategy we'll see during the trucks here tonight. It's going to be a bash of not only skill, but how can you manage over the bumps, and how are you going to managing those different lanes, either running the wall or running the paint. Those are the two most viable options, but we could see some people run the middle. This is one of the most multi-groove ovals I think there is on the service, and we are in for a special race here tonight to open up round two of Road to Pro.
It's a track that was opened back in 2001, and while it's not the oldest track on the NASCAR calendar, or not one of the oldest tracks that's ever been featured on the NASCAR circuit, it definitely shows its age for sure. It's much like Iowa, pretty young tracks from retrospect, but you really look at the surface and you're going to see a lot of bumps, a lot of different types of grooves, like you were talking about, Alex, and things that, of course, the drivers will have to face. In Chicagoland, mostly known as a bottom feeder track with these trucks, but you never know. With a hot track temperature, we could see those different grooves start to emerge. Qualifying going down as we speak, and currently at the moment, Kevin Champagne, the top of the board, and this is going to be big as well, Daniel, because we of course talk about the same sort of drivers that we saw in round one, specifically in the second splits and beyond. You look at guys like Champagne and Agnell Phillip, and then a Daniel Nanny's, Connor Euroshaks of the world, but they're getting mixed in with talent that they probably haven't raced all season long. How big of a challenge is that for them now that they have to feel and see the competition as it is tonight at Chicagoland? They'll get used to it later, but for now, it's brand new territory.
it is going to be new territory because we're going to be mixing in some guys that you might see in the top split that was shown on Marconi Entertainment. Like, you got guys like Michael P. Frisch, who's currently on the pole, guys like Max Brady, guys like Brian Mercurio, who was the round 1 champion. We're going to have a little mix of like some top talent that we saw that was running up in the top split. And those are guys, that's really going to be the only difference, because a lot of these guys race through the second split, race through the third split, the guys that we covered all through round 1 last season. But I think it ain't going to take long for these guys to get used, because it's pretty much going to be the same amount of competition, but it's just these guys were in different splits. So I think it ain't going to take these guys long for them to adjust.
And included in that list, points leader out of round 1, Brian Mercurio. So I think there is certainly a big, tall task for all of those in the field who haven't yet raced against him, but you never know what exactly might happen with these drivers, and this type of race could be very interesting as it stands. We're glad you're with us here on FTN. We will bring you continuous coverage of round number 2 all the way to the very end as we decide those drivers that do get to move on and turn to the Xfinity Series cars for the running of the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series in the fall. Of course, that does lead to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, which our main man Daniel Falkingham has been a part of for a little while now and is getting used to this 2024 season with all of its jumps and all of its notoriety in a sense. Daniel, what have you taken away so far from this season, and how has being a spectator / commentator worked out for you in the sense of seeing the talent that's emerging on the sim, trying to get in?
Yeah, getting to watch this for the last year and a half with you guys has definitely been an experience. And just kind of like just seeing just a lot of new names, but a lot of the names have been, or I've seen quite a few names, but a lot of names have been the same. Like, I've seen a lot of these guys I even worked with and raced with back in the Contender Series last fall. So just kind of seeing like how much of these guys have improved, or what are some new names that I got to keep an eye out for should they come up to the Coke Series or the Contender Series within the next couple of months. So that's just me just seeing like who's the new up-and-comers and who are the guys that are trying to maybe even get back. Because like we talked about guys like Logan Clampett trying to make their way back to the Coke Series, who is in the other split tonight. He won't be in our split tonight, unfortunately. But yeah, just kind of seeing overall seeing the names that I've raced so much in the past, and just seeing the new names that are going to try to be up-and-comers.
It could all come around full circle, and that's what round 2 is all about. We're ready to bring you the starting grid of the opener for the second round in our 2024 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series. And with that, we start with Michael P. Frisch in the number 58. He's on pole with his 30.479. He's got one of the Brady brothers, Max Brady, on his outside. Those will be the first two to lead us to the green flag. Kevin Champagne performed well throughout round 1. We got the privilege to cover his journey throughout. He starts third tonight with Agnell Phillip in the 16 on his outside, looking to get into Contender Series glory. Andrew Navarro in the number 42, multi-time winner in his overall Road to Pro career. He starts inside the top 5 with Michael Venable in the 19 on his outside. That's row number 3. Row 4, you'll find Quentin Warman driving the number 2 truck with two-time winner in round number 1 in second split, Connor Euroshak for Nexus Esports with Front Row Motorsports. He'll be on the outside in 8th place, and to round out tonight's top 10, Daytona winner from round 1 in split 2, Daniel Nanny, and the 27 of JT Poole, Alexander.
Going on is Mitchell Hunt there in the 22, starting on the road just below the top 10. It's Nicola Moore following behind the 25. James Wenzel and Brandon off in row number 7, driving number 13 truck. And as we go through the grid again, I believe we're getting closer to some of those guys who have been in a mix of these. We have Blake McCandless and David Schildhouse. My God. The content creator, 1-2 on that row. And it's Sandra Nijoff and Caden Rush, both driving for Nexus Esports with Front Row Motorsports affiliation. And going down further through the grid, it's Chad McGinley and Brian Mercurio, who we saw leading the points. So being this far back isn't going to help his case. Will he get back up there? That's going to be one of the main points of this race. Josh LaValle and Rocky Boyd, the third, starting there in the bottom of the top 20. Dan?
Yeah. River Hayes and Joe Armstrong that's going to round out the row number 12 here in 23rd and 24th. Ashton Schleitz and Garrison Hogan representing the Nitro Circus team that just made an announcement today that Garrison Hogan will be representing. He'll roll off in 26th. Trevor Huff and Justin Johnson are going to round out row 14 and 27th and 28th. Colton J. Harvey and Johnny Avila is going to round out the top 30. And then rounding out our 34 truck grid tonight, you got Ryan Andrew, Logan Helton, and then Michael Bumgarner and Matt Cooker going to round out our field tonight as they are coming around. Michael P. Frisch, Max Brady going to lead us around and take the green flag.
So we have a full 34 truck field from Joliet, Illinois. The field will round out of turn 4 for the final time behind the iRacing official pace car. We are set to kick off this second round of the 2024 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series to the green flag. And it's a great start for Michael P. Frisch, who holds on to the race lead. Kevin Champagne sliding his way to the inside for second on Max Brady. Single file through most of the top 10. We saw a bit of 3-wide action through the mid-pack, but up here, lap number 2 of 110 from Chicagoland. Everyone clean and green, Alex, as they head back to turn 3.
That's exactly what Frisch needed to do. He needed to get a good start and keep that early advantage, and that which he did. Been able to hold off Kevin Champagne. Oh, he's coming down pit road. He might have a penalty.
Yes, I do have some breaking news. Michael Frisch jumped the start, so probably, I think, had to wait on the green flag, or he may have jumped the restart zone, but he got himself a black flag on the start, so he has to serve a pass-through penalty. So he's going to give up the pole position, give up all that track position, with a self-enforced error right there.
And there goes the pole sitter, Michael P. Frisch, with a dagger sent to him early, and Kevin Champagne takes away the race lead. Andrew Navarro wants a piece of it. The chrome horn with the 42 on the side of it. The Tundra moves down low. Andrew Navarro to the new race lead here at Chicagoland, as Frisch has gone already almost a lap down, back in 33rd, rejoining the field on the back straightaway.
I don't think I've ever seen a harder broadcaster's curse. And as I was saying, what a great start he got. He had so the penalty. I wasn't even finished with the sentence. He ended up down the well. Kevin Champagne goes down to second. A lot of battles going on 3 wide there with a Nexus truck. I believe that's kind of Euroshack as he leads. It's in the mix of another Gossett racing machine. It's Daniel Nanny and Brandon Hawk and Mitchell Hunt. They're all in a group here, battling it out almost 3 wide as they come out of turn 2.
Euroshack, the 2-time winner, most recently at Dover Motor Speedway in our coverage of round number 1 and split number 2. Daniel Nanny, winner at Daytona. You've got Brandon Hawk, who dominated and led every single lap at Richmond Raceway. So we've got several different winners that we encountered throughout Split 2's coverage, making their names recognized here in round 2. New paint schemes for each of those drivers as well, specifically for Euroshack. Not running a full-on Nexus paint scheme. This is an area paint scheme for one of the iRacing leagues out there. He's trying to hold off Hawk, who brings the charge to the outside. This battle underway for top 5 territory as Navarro, you watch him up front, continuing to lead the charge. Champagne right behind, Quentin Warman moving into 3rd place. And what we're noticing, Daniel, already, like we talked about and gave us a preview of with the new truck physics, is that clean air is as important as ever. It might just be a little more powerful than what it used to be pre-update. So you're seeing a lot more scurrying around the racetrack. Hence why Brandon Hawk, several drivers who have moved up high to get a bit of that clean air through the corner.
Yeah, I was about to mention, we're seeing a lot of movers and shakers right now with Brandon Hawk starting in the 14th position. I saw him rim riding up in turns 3 and 4, putting moves around the outside 3 wide on that first lap. He is making some moves. He feels confident in his truck. And right now, he's picking up some positions. He's going to start in the top 5. Want to touch back on Michael P. Frisch for a second. New for round 2. We didn't have this in round 1, Kenneth, if you remember. But here in round 2, there is a restart rule, or they have the start zones in round 2. They didn't have it in round 1. That's why we saw all those crazy restarts, especially at Darlington, just to name an example. But we do have restart rules. We do have the start zone enabled for round 2. And I think definitely caught Frisch off guard there at the start of the race, but now he knows for next time.
I just didn't imagine that it would catch him so early on in the race, but that seems to be the good idea, though, Alex, is yes, of course, you did find yourself in that mistake if you're Frisch. However, you're not a lap down. At least it's not that terrible. And 2, caution could come out. You could be right back in the game. And 3, it's only lap 9 of 110. There's still a long way to go in this race. So if you're Frisch, surely this is damaging, but not to the extent that it'll be race over for the 58.
No, and you made a great point there, was saying that there's 110 laps. This race is by far from being over. So he has all that time to recuperate his spots and trying to get back up to the front. By qualifying standards, he has a rapid truck. So when he gets that clean air, it's going to matter. One thing I wanted to touch base on is the amount of mix of all these different iRacing and eNASCAR setup shops. It's the battle between these people. You've got a mix of Ryko, you've got a mix of EPI, and you've got a mix of the Nexus guys as well. And these aren't really, they're not all grouped together as they are with the teammates. They're all shuffling and battling around. We saw a couple of Ryko guys back, trying to go around the outside of Kevin Champagne. That's the battle for second. That's going to be Gwyneth Warman around the outside of Champagne. He'll get the run off the top of 2, and he'll get the spot down the back straightaway.
Warman looking to chase down Navarro. He gets by Champagne, bringing Max Brady with him, but you are right. Several setup shops displayed specifically throughout Road to Pro. You see it a lot more often than you do in the Coke Series because there are teams that have obviously alliances, but for the most part in deep secret, if you're not enthused in the lore, you won't really know that there are different setups and setup shops, setup teams that all surround the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, apart from just the branded teams like the Joe Gibbs Racing of the world, like the Spire Motorsports, like some of the other teams like Nitro Circus that, Daniel, you mentioned a little earlier on, and we've seen all of that diversity through round 1. We're seeing it more in round 2, and I feel that the drama might just gain itself a little more than it would in the first round because you're starting to crunch down on drivers. And while teams will, of course, work together, that individuality will still stand out. You'll still find drivers that are hungrier to get it over their teammate, and they don't mind if their teammate misses out as long as they get the benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, it seems like in this game these days, you always want to like battle for yourself when it comes down to it, but seeing the amount of teamwork that goes into like setting up these trucks and just the amount of time and effort that these teams put in, it's really great to see like how much like these people want it. They want to get to the top. They want to run as well as they can, and we're seeing on display right now. We got a mix of a lot of teams up here at the front right now trying to battle for position. Speaking of this battle, just like look at these guys when we get a shot here in the turns 1 and 2. These guys are all over the racetrack right now. As we see, this is classic Chicagoland. We got guys running on the bottom. We got guys running right up on the fence. These guys trying to move around, trying to find any clean air on their nose, and trying to make the most speed they can. Let's look at Daniel Nanny. He's going to go into turns 3 and 4. He's up in the 3rd lane, and we're seeing Brandon Hawk and guys behind him. They're up in the 4th lane, right up against the wall. This is great to see early on.
Seeing a lot of drivers go up to the boards as early as lap 5 of this race. At lap 15, we're already seeing many of those comfortable with running all the way up there. You're looking at Daniel Nanny, his current pursuit for top 5 territories. He looks on board with Connor Aeroshak on the inside. Nanny ended up 44th in eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series points in round 1. Of course, courtesy of that first win that came his way at Daytona, and was not able to replicate that same success, but consistent finishes brought him all the way through, especially at the end when he needed it most at Charlotte, where he was able to pick up a solid top 10 to secure his name into this round 2 schedule. And it's going to get ultimately harder here, Alex, and while the competition grows up front, and we're watching the battles for the lead, 3rd, 5th on back, you're also going to see over the trajectory of this schedule, consistency mattering even more than it ever did in round 1, because yes, you do have a smaller overall driver pool, but they're definitely better drivers overall when you look at how much iRating they have, and of course how long a lot of these drivers have been on the sim. So the competition turns up, and watch this for the race lead. Quentin Warman taking the nose underneath Andrew Navarro, side by side for P1.
Navarro's been in that lead for quite a long time, ever since the start of this race, lap 17, and we have a strong battle for the lead. These two are going to go at it there. You can see them using those 2 different lanes as Navarro tries using that, not quite the wall, but that line's a very popular one, especially at Chicagoland. I think that's one of the faster lines to run up top, and you can see the absolute run that he got off turn 4. It looks like he's going to be able to hold off and keep using those top lanes to get that extra speed and momentum off the corner when it's needed. But right now, he's been able to hold off Quentin very well. He's sort of pulled away from the pack so far.
And mostly everyone single file. First battle inside the top 10. How about Blake McCandless in his number 6 Chevrolet Silverado? You don't see any numbers on McCandless' truck, but that's the style he likes to run with. He likes to turn to the history of the McCandless family that does a lot of drag racing, and obviously Blake with a gorgeous paint scheme tonight, although he's getting freight trained on the outside. Michael Venable, Caden Rush among those looking to make the charge up top. And around this group, further back several spots, Daniel, is Brian Mercurio, the driver who dominated everyone in points back in round 1 and is the number 1 truck in this split. Based on iRating, so far not that much progress out of the points leader out of round 1. He's been sort of stable where he's at, although he's made some good progress after starting in 20th. Not that much in the spotlight as of right now.
Yeah, had a very shocking qualified in the 20th position, so not what he hoped for, but right now he's kind of working his way through the field right now, running in position number 12, and that's what he needs. He's still got plenty of time. We still got about 90 laps to go. We still got a couple pit stops, and that's something I want to touch up on later into the race, as the strategy we're going to see. Because I've been talking with a few of the teams, been talking with a lot of drivers. This ain't going to be your normal one-stop race. With this race being 110 laps, a few more laps than normal mile and a half we've been going to this season, we're going to see up to 2 pit stops in this race if this race stays green. So the strategy could be all over the place. And I'm hearing a lot of people might like that undercut. The undercut seems pretty favorable, because depending on, way better than going long. So someone like Brian Mercurio buried in the pack right now, that could be a strategy play he could deploy, but maybe try to jump a few guys if he wants to pit really early. So we'll have to see what happens as we have a battle for the race lead.
And as long as we stay under green, that setup to strategy might just be more interesting than we encounter it as. Quentin Warman snags away the race lead from Andrew Navarro, but here comes the 42 with a counteract. He goes back down in turn 1, trying to knock out Warman on the outside, but it won't work. Warman's going to hold on through the middle lane. He's got the race lead for a moment. Navarro has to back out, and another new race leader from Chicagoland. Give it to the Tommy Gossett number 2 of Quentin Warman in his Ford F-150. Ravages down low and is able to take the spot now. Max Brady wanting to take away P2 from Navarro, who's slowly falling back.
We can see these battles going on at the head of the field. And once a guy takes the position and gets that clean air, one thing I would like to mention is that I think that their truck might drive a little differently. A lot of these guys maybe who knew that they couldn't be so fast, maybe at the head of the field, set their truck up to kind of handle through the dirty air. And you got to wonder, how is that going to change how the truck handles, when you get in clean air, or if you get in clean air? And that's going to be one of the things to take home, especially people only having, I think, what was it, about 3 to 2 weeks before we got the real truck update just after the last round. And so these guys have had to really turn on the jets and get used to the new truck model, because things are much different than they were in the first phase of Road to Pro.
And with a track like Chicagoland, you naturally are going to get a lot of separation. And Daniel, I'll turn to you on this as the driver who's had more experience behind the wheel than any of us in the broadcast booth. What is it like to drive now, or what have you heard from other drivers on what it's like to drive over the long run? Maybe like at tracks like Chicagoland, but even just across the iRacing circuit, what seems to be the biggest difference with these trucks aerodynamically versus pre-rebuild and pre-update before round 2?
Yeah, well, for me personally, I can't speak on it too much because I actually haven't driven a lap in the truck since the update. So right now I am cold turkey, so I've had to rely on just a lot of other people, guys like from the NFR/EPI camp. That these guys, or what I've been hearing is it's much harder in traffic to try to maneuver around, because I'm hearing dirty air and just overall track position is way more important, and the dirty air just feels generally worse. That's the biggest thing I've been hearing, and the biggest thing I've been hearing is, like I mentioned, track position and having that clean air. From what I've been hearing, it's better to go up and get all the clean air you can, to run hard and get that clean air, than to just sit in line and ride in that dirty air. So I've a way bigger change, and I've been hearing that people have been leaning on the right rear. The right rear is a little bit more important to lean on in this build as well. So just hearing a lot of different opinions. A lot of people like it, a lot of people don't like it. So it's been interesting to hear a lot of people's opinions on it. And right now, it's been producing some great racing, especially around a track like this. So, and right now we're keeping it clean and green so far as we complete lap 26. No caution so far, but right now, the changes that's been going on in the truck, right now producing some great racing.
looks to be pretty nice. And overall so far, lots of crews from the outside to the middle. One truck near the outside wall and falling back. That is the 7 truck, Joe Armstrong. Seems like he got a piece of the outside safer barrier, falling back to the field. And although the aerodynamics did get updated with these trucks, Alex, one thing that is a common thread, even after the June build, was that if you do get aerodynamic damage, your truck's going to be pretty slow in a straight line. Armstrong is going to take this Toyota straight to pit road. We should expect him to be a lap down, and that could be a positive for Michael P. Frisch, who will gain 1 and move up to P32.
And you mentioned that, especially with these trucks getting a new and tweaked damage model. One thing that was certain during the early stages of the build, I don't know if they've fixed it yet, but a lot of people had complaints about the side skirt damage and how that would be
so we got a little contact between Caden Rush, and I believe that is Daniel Nanny. Caden Rush got up into the wall off of turn number 4, and there was a little bit of contact between him and Daniel Nanny. That caused a little stack up here with this battle for what looks to be P7, and right now they keep it straight, but a little scary moment. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Alex, but we had a little scary moment off turn 4 that time.
That was a little scary. Yeah, we almost thought there was a caution there.
I kind of jumped out of my seat there in a minute, but that's one thing I think that this truck package that they've changed has really done. The people now having to really move out of line to get that clean air, and it having such an advantage. Now that you're able to use those different lanes, we're going to have battles like this. We're going to have fights for different lanes. We're going to have fights for clean air, and that is what I think produces a really, really good set of racing. Having to move around and having that lane choice and that lane availability is one of the things that makes, I think, especially Chicagoland, such a great track to begin with.
We'll try and take a look at exactly what happened with the number 7 truck of Armstrong getting loose out of turn 4, but it's really turns 1 and 2 that spelled disaster for this truck specifically. He's taken his truck down pit road and has since fallen 2 laps down, but going side by side here, Elliott Sadler Esports entry and just gets tagged up into the outside wall. It just sort of swiveled right in front of that fellow truck and unfortunately gets a piece of the safety barrier. So Armstrong in some trouble early, still has a good amount of damage on his Toyota Tundra. So at this point, we're going to stay clean and green though. 31 laps in with Quentin Warman at the front, Daniel.
Yeah, something else I do want to point out, I'm glad you talked about that damage or that incident right there, because that brought up another thing that's to do with these trucks. The damage seems to be more noticeable, and it definitely hurts you a lot more. It brings me back to the days of back in like 2021 with the old damage model. And that's talking about the damage you get on the right, especially on like the side skirts or the underbody. If you get any sort of damage to like the side skirts, the underbody, wherever, it doesn't go away for the race. So that's something that these teams have needed to think about when adjusting for certain tracks where you're like, say like if we had like a Phoenix on the schedule, like where you're cutting the apron and damage the underbody, damage the side skirts, that damage doesn't go away. You're stuck with it for the rest of the race. So that's going to be something else that these teams or these drivers need to be careful with when racing other people, especially with netcode being a very common factor. Is if you get any sort of damage, especially on the side skirts, especially hitting on that right side, you get it up into the wall, that damage doesn't go away. You're stuck with it for the rest of the race, and it's a major loss of downforce and just hampers all your speed. So that is something else that these teams need to be careful for. Which reminds me, like I said, bring me back to the old damage model.
And also a major loss just for Joe Armstrong himself. It seems like the riding has continued from the last race of round 1, where he finished 24th at Charlotte Motor Speedway and having a streak of top 10s snapped at that point. He had 1 win in round 1. He finished 4th in the points, easily unlockable into this round with the top 70, but Armstrong already facing the wall here early on at lap number 34. Some battles here through the mid-pack. This is Michael Venable for Nexus Esports with Front Row Motorsports sort of falling back through the pack. We're watching a side-by-side action quickly behind him with David Schildhaus in these number 20 machine with Trevor Huff on the outside. They're around the 19th place truck of JT Poole. Poole and Huff finished basically neck and neck right at the standings at the end of round 1, 37th and 38th respectively. Only separated by give or take 9 points between those two, so they were basically attached at the hip by the end of round 1. Some good battles though through the mid-pack, and this is something you do have to watch for, Alex, as well, because as we talk about the potential undercut strategy, 35 laps in, you're going to start to think about when is the proper time to visit pit road. And for the leaders, it might just be a little more clear-cut and obvious, but those in the mid-pack, they have to alternate. How do they do that?
I think, opening pit strategy is going to be something that is on the minds of a lot of people, because at the start, you want to make sure that you get it right. If you get it wrong and you could be sent back, other people will take note that you got it wrong and make sure that they do something else, which could end up being the right thing. So pit strategy is going to come down to a big thing here in Chicagoland, especially, we've talked about the nature of the track, it being multi-groove, it being bumpy, a rather older surface, which means it's going to be more wear on the tires. And especially if you're sitting in that dirty air, scrubbing those right fronts and those front tires in general, it's going to be tough to decide when you need to come down pit road based off of tires or based off of fuel, and depending on where the rest of the pack goes in as well. So these guys deciding on whether or not an undercut or an overcut is a better idea is going to be a tough decision to make.
And watch on board with Andrew Navarro, who's settled nicely in third. Lost a spot to Connor Euroshak, who's picked up the pace over this long run, but so far no one able to beat Quentin Warman. He is solidly pulling away with this advantage that continues to grow. This time it clocks in at about 1.1 seconds between this Warman truck and Euroshak right behind. So as soon as this run has delved into the cliff range where a lot of the tires start to fall off at its maximum peak, you're looking at a lot more separation, and for the race lead, pretty decisive at this moment. But through the top 10, you're looking at gaps that are around 1 to 2, maybe 3 tenths, Daniel, so it starts to get a little closer between everyone in the field, and I believe you're starting to see a lot more movers to the field as well. Guys like Blake McCandless has slowly moved up. You look at guys like Brandon Hawk, you mentioned that he started further back in this field, 14th, he's moved his way up to 10th, and then those who have fallen off over the long run, the likes of Agnell Phillip back in the 16th truck right behind in 11th, and several others who have just sort of meandered around the mid-pack. You're watching a lot more excitement through the mid-pack, but so far at the front seems to be pretty concentric, pretty clear-cut, as I would say, with Norman in the lead.
Pitter, Blake McCandless, he's going to be the guinea pig, and he's going to pull the undercut first. He is coming to pit road. I was about to bring up another point, but right now we got pit stops underway.
And here is McCandless bringing his number 6 truck in. He is known, of course, for pulling off these wild alternative strategies, and there have been several races where he has never pit at all, and it seemed to have worked out for him. McCandless is going to be the first one in. He brings several others with him. That is Johnny Avila, that golden truck in the background. River Hayes in the 10 machine. He's going to be right there in the 81 truck, so him getting his service at this moment, and we'll watch to see if anybody else decides to follow, and the answer is yes. Caden Rush will come in this time by at lap 41, bringing points leader from round 1, Brian Mercurio, with him.
A lot of these guys pitting early. Oh, sorry to cut you off, Dan.
Nah, sorry, it's all good. I was about to say, we got Brian Mercurio, like I mentioned earlier. He might have to pull a bit of a strategy because he was kind of floundering around the 14th, 15th position. Really hasn't moved up through the field like I thought he was going to. So he's here trying to do something different. And now something that these guys do not need is a caution. These guys have pitted early, trying to get this strategy, trying to work in their favor. They need this to run green. We had a very close call with guys coming up that road.
There's a bumper flying. I saw a bumper.
Yeah, I just saw we had a very close call with guys coming to pit road. Some guys kind of stacked up in front of each other. Some guys trying to probably call out pitting. Some guys didn't realize it, and we had some chaos, but there's no caution. We stay green.
Rocky Boyd now coming down pit road as well. Andrew Navarro's coming down pit road. So we have a lot of takers here at the head of the field trying to come down pit road, and hopefully they make it through a bit cleaner as the 42 of Navarro going to slide the rears just a bit, and a brake lock on entry. He'll make it fine down pit road. But we did have some contact there on the last pit road entry that resulted in a rear bumper clip flying off into the track, and I think it was purple.
Might have seen which purple truck got the damage, but at least as we're looking at it, a lot of these drivers focusing in, they seem to be having it all right. Andrew Navarro is in for his stop. Quentin Warman next up on the docket. He hops on the brakes. He's in this time. Swerve to the left. Will Euroshak follow? Answer is yes, and the same will go for Nania Trio, a Ford F-150 strong down pit road. And this will hand the lead off to the Chevrolet of Agnell Phillip with Brandon Hawk right behind and JT Poole to round out your top 3. We are right in the middle of this green flag cycle at lap 44, and this is exactly where your point creeps in, Daniel, about when you come down and whether we might see some different strategies on call, whether some would like to extend this one as long as possible, or whether lap 44, lap 45 is the right place to do it. Agnell Phillip almost getting tagged there by the 6th truck on his way in, but Phillip is on his way down, and at lap 45, crossing the line, Agnell Phillip on pit road, Brandon Hawk the race leader.
Brandon Hawk continuing to race to stay in the lead. He was someone that went really hard at the beginning. We're starting to slip back just a little bit, but right now he's going to try to go on. This is a strategy I tried to pull the other night in the Coke race on Tuesday. That did not work out well for me whatsoever. So it's nice to see some of these guys trying their own strategy, as right now this is going to be a battle for the lead because Blake McCandless, Caden Rush, they had a great pit cycle. They jumped a lot of guys, and these two are going to be battling for the race lead when they pitted. So right now, this is a great call by these guys so far.
Caden Rush will move ahead. McCandless gives way for now, and you're right. This is the undercut that will give them the race lead, but it's going to be a question of how long will it take before guys like Quentin Warman and gang try to catch up with the fresher tires. Gap sits at around a couple seconds between those two drivers, but there's Warman there entering turn 3, so he's not terribly far behind. And Kevin Champagne, Max Brady, they're up the road as well on 2-lap older tires, so this could get really interesting between a bunch of these drivers. As Trevor Hupp, Sander Nietzhoff in the number 14 have entered pit road. They're bringing a ton of others with them. Brandon Hawk, JT Poole among those that are in. How about 3 wide almost to the pit line exits? Chad McGinley, for the first time, we've never called his name until now, taking over the race lead with Logan Helton, the Firecracker 400 winner, sitting in second.
And I like to see these differences in strategies, sort of play out. My question is anyone going to be brave enough to try and stay out to the halfway point of lap 55? Helton seems to be running that lower lane, but has not called that he was pitting yet, as he almost doored, I believe that was the 67 into the outside wall. And so it's the 97 Team Conti truck into the outside wall. Logan Helton keyed up like he was going to say something. Still no word from him, but we're on lap 48 right now, and we've got to lap 55 into the halfway marker. So being brave with the pit stop strategy is going to be something we're going to see all throughout the race, but especially here in these first stops. And we may see Helton pit now, and no, it doesn't look like it either. So maybe he is trying to go the halfway distance, and that would be interesting, but I don't know how well it's going to fit with everyone else's strategy.
Well, the top 4 have stayed out until this point. We await their entry to pit road. This is the battle for what will be third on the net positioning. Quentin Warman down low on Max Brady. Easy decision, making quick work of that 17, so he moves up to net P3. McCandless giving way for Caden Rush to lead the way. So far, again, top 4 have yet to come down pit road. But Daniel, you're not that confident that they can make it exactly halfway and make it only on one stop.
From what I heard,
caution, yellow.
Caution flag is out right as the green flag pit stop cycle completes. We'll have to find this on the racetrack. We're still trying to search for it, but that is going to put a break. That's going to put a break in the action as we are under caution for the first time in split 2 of round 2.
Slow truck, it looks to be Sander Nietzhoff, but we'll take another look and we'll see how this all unfolded. See exactly where all of this stemmed from. Yeah, it was around Sander Nietzhoff as he was getting through traffic. We were talking about old and new tires. There's a big discrepancy, and as the truck moves in front, there's Nietzhoff with a slight contact and sending that 60 truck for a spin. And there's Matt Cooker going by, and the spinning truck appeared to have been, we're going to try to take a look. These are all custom numbers, so bear with us as we move forward. But Sander was involved in that accident, and Alex, you are right. He was a bit of the driver. They gave him a bit of help on the way.
Yeah, and just, it's really hard to avoid, especially when you're 3 wide, there's nowhere to go. And so both as the car pursuing the incident and the car that's, being on the victim end, it's tough both ways. You want to get out of the way, you want to try and do everything you can, but where they were coming up the exit of 4, he still didn't have access to the apron. He didn't have access to go anywhere else. He had to go middle. Sander tried to avoid him, and as he was going low, just tagged him on the rear end, and around he went. Most of the damage that I can see here is basically just, tires. You slid him because he locked up. And Sander may have a couple of right side scuffs. Didn't hit it that hard. Didn't really see any smoke either. So, all being set aside, it's an unfortunate incident to bring out our first yellow of the race at near the halfway mark. But really, there's nothing anyone else, I don't think, could have done there. Dan, do you think maybe there was something Sander could have done? I don't think so.
I don't know. I think that was just a meeting of maybe old tires, new tires, try and move around each other, and just a slight misjudgment right there. But you'll get that. That does happen. It always happens when we're trying to go through a green flag pit cycle. But so yeah, for guys like Chad McGinley, Andrew Navarro stayed on the racetrack. But guys like Chad McGinley, Logan Helton, Dustin Johnson, all these guys that stayed out to try to catch a caution, it worked for them. They're now going to be restarting up front when they were all buried down in the pack. So they caught a lucky break. So I am very much looking forward to see how this restart's going to pan out.
Well, looking at it, Dustin Johnson was that innocent bystander involved in the caution. He was one of those who had stayed out as long as possible and still searching to get to halfway and run the fuel tank dry, but unfortunately he gets spun. He does keep some decent track position, will be just on the outskirts of the top 10 once we get back underway, but you're right, Daniel, some big opportunities for a Logan Helton, for a Chad McGilley, and even if Dustin Johnson was collected in that, no damage as far as we can see. He took his truck down pit road, he's got fresher tires, and that is the upper hand on everyone else who have stayed out. That is currently your top 8, led by Andrew Navarro. So it is going to be fun to see those guys try and cut through the field, but we've talked about dirty air. We've talked about how much clean air matters with this new aerodynamic update. So what does that entail for those further back in traffic, and does it make their route to the front a little easier? Will it be a little harder? So far, Navarro holds on to the lead as we are almost halfway. Let's remind you for just a moment that if you want to keep in touch with all of the newest updates and all the latest developments in the world of eNASCAR, you can scan that QR code on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Stay up to date with everything on iRacing and eNASCAR, including this Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, the eNASCAR Contender Series set to take place later this fall, and the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series as they try to decide a season champion and giving away $500,000 in awards. So to figure out how to get into the series, how to start your sim racing career on iRacing, or if you want to learn more about the series in general, scan that QR code and you'll be on your way with iRacing, the official simulation partner of NASCAR. Daniel, you've got some words for us as we get set for the green flag at lap 54.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick announcement that I don't know if anyone remembers the bracket challenge that the Coke Series did last year, presented by Logitech. Well, I am happy to say that is back for this year, which is going to be beginning this Tuesday night at Chicago. The brackets are out, and they are ready to be filled out. If you go to the William Byron Esports Twitter page, you can go out there, fill out a bracket, just like what Denny Hamlin has been doing in real life in the Cup Series. You can do it for the Coke Series as well. The brackets are live. You can check out all the matchups, and you can make your own bracket to win some really cool prizes from Logitech. So go check that out. Go check out the William Byron Esports Twitter page. They might be on Instagram as well, but yeah, go check it out and go fill out a bracket and see if you can go win some cool prizes.
Definitely recommend that. I guess instead of the March Madness, we'll call it the Summer Scrambles, I guess. Maybe a terrible pun, but if you do want to get your hype up with the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series as they move forward through the season, definitely do that. That bracket will be a ton of fun to cover throughout. Our first restart of the night taking place at lap 54 after our first yellow. Navarro and Euroshek leading to the green flag. We're 4 wide. Back in the pack, Logan Helton and Caden Rush stuck in the middle for turn 1.
Holy moly, we're still 4 wide. Logan Helton in that middle lane. He's going to get squeezed. Caden Rush being squeezed as well. These guys managed to make it out alive, but they are still 3 wide or 3 rows back throughout. These guys being extremely aggressive at a checkup on that bottom lane makes it so we are 3 by 3 by 3 by 3 in close contact with Kevin Champagne. Max Brady will go to the apron, and these guys survived a restart of 4 wide, now to go 2 and 3 wide single file back.
And on the inside is Brian Mercurio. He wants to look at Blake McCandless. Daniel Nanny up on the high side. McCandless got loose on the inside after being 4 wide through turns 1 and 2. And in the Hornet's Nest, Quentin Warman, former race leader. We are once again 4 wide and 3 wide entering the corner. Look at this all the way at the back out of turn 4.
Oh, they're going to make contact off of turn number 4, and they save it, and they stay together. This 60, and I believe the McCandless almost went around, but they caught it, and they are still 3 wide.
Remember, a bunch of these trucks are on fresher tires than those up at the front. They want to cut their way through the field, but with all of this draft early off of the restart, Daniel, it does not get easy, and once again, we're 3 wide. Back there, you see an Altus Engineering truck on the bottom. That's James Wenzel looking underneath Quentin Warman, and Nicholas Moritz running up to P6 as he looks under Brandon Hawk.
He's looking under Brandon Hawk. Then you see Caden Rush. He's in line with Brandon Hawk trying to get around Quentin Warman. I'd say this is definitely the battle for the race lead. These are the guys that are on the freshest tires trying to get up to the front. And right now, Caden Rush says Quentin Warman, he's going to squeeze 3 wide up the middle. He's going to make it work, but he's going to get back in line behind Caden Rush. And there's
contact! Logan Helton in turn 3, and there they all go,
Oh,
and
what
they're
now?
the far wide into the wall, and that is going to bring out the caution again, and that's the first big one. Entering Road to Pro Round 2, and bumpers are flying across the racetrack.
It is a huge
Oh
one
my.
at Chicagoland at the
goodness.
tick of lap 58. And we knew there was going to be a boiling point. That seemed to be the overwhelming tragedy. In the last set of corners, Dustin Johnson, who was involved in the first yellow, all torn up as Nicholas Morse has taken it to the garage. His night is over from Illinois.
And I was getting worried there just seeing everyone bounce around because I was worried about these guys getting slight damage on their side skirts on their right side because that damage you get is not repairable whatsoever. So just seeing these guys bounce around was kind of scaring me for a little bit as you got to look at Garrison Hogan right there. But we're going to get a replay right here, and you called it, Alex. It all started right here in the middle of the field. There's someone trying to get up, and they were not quite clear.
That was Logan Helton. Nicholas Morse, who went right up in front of them. The hard hit up to the outside wall.
Nicholas
That's Johnny
Morse.
Avila, Daniel Nanny, Garrison Hogan involved in that, and several others. It's a mess in turn 4.
Yeah, we got a mess in turn 4. Nicholas Morse trying to go up to the outside lane, but just simply wasn't clear, and kind of clear himself. And then there's, I think that was Daniel Nanny and Dustin Johnson getting together. And that's going to end a lot of people's nights right there as we see a lot of the field on pit road getting some fresh tires, fixing some damage. But we got a little mix of strategy up here at the front.
And it's Caden Rush who will lead them out still on the 8-lap old tires. Remember, the different call that they made on the recent caution to visit pit road. Those who had stayed out a little longer, I guess they got their call and their wish. Andrew Navarro will come out here in P10. Brian Mercurio, I think, was one of those actually to come out in front. Same with Chad McGinley in the 32 truck. So a bit more mixing of the order as it stands. But a big mess to bring out our second caution and takes out several heavy contenders. Of course, Logan Helton is always a driver, Alex, you can never ignore on the racetrack. Same with Daniel Nanny, Garrison Hogan, then Dustin Johnson, Johnny Avila among those that are involved. And this will be a monumental shunt to their pursuit at making the Contender Series in several months, because one bad race in round 2 could set you up for the rest of the round. Hopefully that's not the case, but definitely not the start they were hoping for.
It's tough to say that there's better competition or other when you're at, the bottom and starting to get up to the peak of the feeder series. These guys, though, that's a lot of popular names and fast names gone in that wreck as well. I believe if I counted correctly, it wasn't just those 4. Multiple other people got involved and turned as well. And if my numbers are correct, I believe 8 or 9 people got involved total in that wreck, whether they were a part of the main deal or else they had gotten turned after or turned before. So we have a good chunk of the field gone in that one incident, and that is going to take a lot of popular and fast guys out, I think, especially from winning in that case or another. But right now, for those guys, it's going to be about damage limitation. You want to go head full of steam into this race, and that obviously does not play out well. What a cam. We can see the whole wreck happen, and from a guy lower in the field, there's nowhere to go, and whoa, what an avoidance. Oh my god. And see, that is the luck you need going into the second phase of Road to Pro. What an avoidance.
Beautiful stuff out of Michael Venable, who came down pit road, and he now is the moment going to be finally back in row 11, P22, as we get to this next restart, which should come our way at lap 62 of 110. Some beautiful stuff there to get away from the spinning Nanny right in the middle of the racetrack. Again, our biggest crash of the night takes off several laps before we get to about 50 laps to go. So, Daniel, we were talking about strategy. You were not confident that these drivers could make it halfway. How is the situation now? Are you maybe a little more confident that they could make it possibly to the end of this race with about 50 to go, especially because they can save now?
Now, those guys that just pitted this time by, I think for sure should be able to make it to the end of the race on fuel. Now, these guys up front that stayed out, I'm not exactly sure. Well, but this is why I'm not behind the wheel right now. These guys might have a better idea than I do, but we'll see how it just turns out with Caden Rush, Quentin Warman, Blake McCandless, Ashton Schleiss, all these guys staying out here. We got a couple more cautions that puts them right in that window for it all to fall right into place. So I'm looking forward to see how this is going to turn out for these guys, but we still got lots of racing left. It's going to be 49 laps to go when we take the green this time.
Well, Caden Rush will have control of the field exiting turn 4. Quentin Warman, who's led a chunk of laps tonight from Chicagoland, will be right up top in row 1. Ashton Slice, who we haven't talked much about him in that 33 Fanatec truck, he'll be on the outside of row 2. Blake McCandless up to a race high 4th as it stands, with Kevin Champagne and Chad McGinley right behind them in row number 3. Green flag restart back in the air. Champagne moving down low to assist McCandless in the entry to turn 1. Caden Rush with the race lead.
Caden Rush with the race lead. He'll lead him through turns 1 and 2. Blake McCandless is going to take that second spot away from Quentin Warman. Not the greatest restart for Warman right there. Kevin Champagne, he changed lanes there to the apron. Don't have to worry about lane changes in road to pro. He's going to make a move to the inside. We're kind of 4 wide.
God, we're 4 again.
But these guys are going crazy, but you got plenty of room to do it. As here comes Quentin Warman back around the outside lane. He's going to make a run at Caden Rush. Rush is going to go with the block. Here comes McCandless to the bottom. We're going to be 3 wide.
4 wide almost.
And here's Warman up top. So 3-way battle entering turn 1. McCandless down low and Rush with no help in the middle lane. Warman wiggling up top the 18 degrees of banking. He's got the race lead from Chicagoland. Rush moves back in and we're still 3 wide. Brian Mercurio back there in the top 10 looking to make a move.
And these guys are all packed up together, and that's what we saw and how we saw that last incident happen. These guys all being 3 wide, no 4 pushing it yet. But these guys, well, I say that they're pushing it for Kevin Champagne on the bottom. And then I believe that's one of the Ryco guys thinks better of it, and he'll cut back in line. But these guys absolutely going toe-to-toe and vying for every spot possible. They're going to be 3 wide, and now I can't tell. These guys are going super aggressive. We're only lap 3 after the restart.
It is pandemonium after the drop of the green flag. And look who's down low entering 5th. That's Rocky Boyd as some trucks behind nearly tango at the exit of 4. Kevin Champagne with a bit of help down low from Andrew Navarro. They clear the likes of River Hayes, then Brian Mercurio behind, Agno Phillip in the 16, who can never go wrong, Daniel, with a green flag restart with these trucks, because regardless of the update or not, it is providing phenomenal racing as the side-by-side battle for 3rd place heats up. Schleiss looking to defend on McKinley.
Especially at a place like Chicagoland where the restarts are going to get hectic. You see some 2, 3, and 4 wide racing like we've seen a lot of times tonight. Now look at Chad McGinley. He's the first car that had pitted that last time by that is on new tires, and I believe count out Brandon Hawk. Brandon Hawk pitted last time as well. So essentially the battle could be for the win between these two if this runs green, because we don't know the fuel situation for guys like Warman, Rush, and Schleiss. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that. But right now it's going to be Brandon Hawk takes that spot away from McGinley, and now he's going to go for 3rd on Schleiss.
He looks underneath. Schleiss, one of the only trucks in the top 5 running up there. McGinley the 2nd. Rocky Boyd looking down low. It seems as though the bottom lane has the best momentum as McCandless is falling through the cracks. Navarro down low with a bit of help behind from 2-time winner in round 1, Connor Hiroshak. This pack continuously deciding those in the latter half of this top 10. And most of these drivers, Alex, are former race leaders. You look at Warman, who's taken the race lead, sure, but McCandless, who spent a good amount of time up front, Connor Hiroshak, who moved up to 2nd during one of our longest green flag runs of the night, Navarro, who started this race moving up to the front quickly, and several others who have enjoyed time at the front now having to carve their way through the field. Navarro having enough of the 2-wide action right in front. He dives under 3 wide.
And Navarro is one of those guys who had been in the lead, and now he's chopping his way back up through the field to get back to the lead again. As he thought 2 wide wasn't enough, he goes 3 wide and doesn't get the help from the number 65 behind him. However, he's been fast enough to prove that he doesn't need help. He's been able to make all these passes for position on his own, as he's going to squeeze the 16 all the way up to the edge of the outside wall. This battles and, all of this stuff going on has been absolutely incredible. One thing I do want to note, though, is, we talked about fuel strategy in the first part. Some people couldn't make it to the halfway point. We didn't really get to see who the longest stayers were for fuel. We can only manage about 50 laps or so before the caution came out, I think, on 49, the original one. And so we don't know how long, theoretically, if saved enough, the tank could last. Some people maybe could go to the end if it stays green. We'll have to see on lap 70 of 110.
Well, we did see most of the field, Daniel, come around lap 45 on our initial green flag run before the first yellow, a race at about lap 57 to 58. So maybe there's a little confidence that you could stretch it out a little longer, but as this race runs green further on, it might just become a little more of an outstretch if you want to make it to lap 110 on the fuel that you have remaining, as Brandon Hawk looks down low on Rush, who washed up high the lap before in that same part of the track, turn 4. So Hawk looking for a second, trying to attack on Warman, and looking to take the race lead for the first time tonight.
Brandon Hawk pitted at lap 58 compared to Quentin Warman and Caden Rush, who pitted on lap 50. So a little bit of difference there, but we did have some caution laps in between. So a little bit of fresh rubber on that number 13 truck, Brandon Hawk. But he's going to try to make the use of it. He's going to go top side here in turns 3 and 4. Try to build a run on Caden Rush, and looks like he's going to build a big run as Caden Rush. He's going to look to the inside of Warman. Warman did not have a good turns 3 and 4, but he's going to get help from his teammate in Brandon Hawk. 2 Ryko drivers on the top. And then you got Caden Rush trying to muscle his way down to the inside, or actually make that 3 Ryko trucks coming up to the front.
And here they go, 3 wide at the exit of turn 2. Hawk going upside. And in the middle is Quentin Warman looking to defend. He goes under Caden Rush, and he's able to hold that Chevrolet off. And we are door to door for the race lead with under 40 laps to go. And this is easily becoming a 5 to 6 truck race for the top spot. Hawk, the race leader. Rocky Boyd looking to push onwards to the 13. Brandon Hawk, the race leader, now back to turn 1.
And
You should have seen the run that Rocky Boyd got. Sorry to cut you off, Daniel. He got an insane run off the top in 3 and 4. What could he do now? He's going to make the pass for second again. And a lot of these guys being aggressive again. We have about a 5-car, maybe 6 now battle for the lead, it seems. And these guys are not backing down an inch. They've been going at it for really this entire time since the restart. And Rocky Boyd has made his way up to second. Will he go for the race lead?
And if there are any notes to take, Daniel, from the first run of this race, is that Quentin Warman, as soon as he got into clean air and settled up front, he never looked back and he ran away with it. So it seems to be less of a race for the lead, but more of a race for that clean air that Hawk is consuming right now.
Absolutely. I just want to correct myself. I said 3 Ryko trucks because I saw a purple truck. I thought that was Daniel Nanny. It is not. That is Rocky Boyd. So I just want to correct myself right there. But Rocky Boyd, he's impressing me so far. He made it to the round 2, I believe, for the first time this year. And he's looking to have a strong run here at Chicagoland. And he's going to try to go for the race lead. Him and Hawk are on the same tire. So is Andrew Navarro. So these guys, this could be the race for the win if this stays green. Rocky Boyd, he's going to look to the inside. He's going to do a little side draft on Brandon Hawk. And he's going to have this inside lane going down to turn 3. Side by side down to turn number 3. And now Rocky Boyd, he's going to run the middle. Hawk on the fence. And looks like Andrew Navarro is going to straddle that seam. And we're still going to have a big race off turn 4.
Look out for Navarro. He might be the deciding driver in who gets the race lead and the nose ahead entering turn 1. He drafts on both of them. So again, it will stay door to door. Rocky Boyd gets the nose ahead of Hawk. He'll slide up. Will that be worthwhile at the exit of turn 2? Yes. New race leader, Rocky Boyd III, who comes into round 2, barely getting in. He was second to last in round 1 points by 8. Barely above the last driver who got in Derek Heitman. So Rocky Boyd, what a statement this is, Alex, with 35 to go.
An incredible statement would it would have been if it is that he wins. It would be incredible. Able to fight his way up under a couple of cautions and on a green flag run. He's able to take the lead over Navarro and the number 13 of Brandon Hawk. Now this is shaping up to be an incredible 4-car battle for the lead. But then you've got to remember, one of the older guys in this series, Connor Euroshak, who's peeking his head. He's made the rounds. He's been about, and he is looking to see what he can do to vie his way up to that top position. You've got 3 trucks looking on to a chasing Rocky Boyd III. They're all looking at his rear end right now, and maybe in a few laps, if Navarro gets his truck rolling, that might not be the case.
Well, this is bad news for those fighting for second, because Daniel, as long as these two remain side by side, which they don't, Euroshak ducking under to look for third place. As long as they stay door to door, Rocky Boyd is enjoying all that clean air, and he can pull away much like Quentin Warman did at the beginning of this race. Now, it won't necessarily be the easiest route for Boyd, not necessarily saying outright that he will pull away, but as long as those battle behind him, it will not be a question of whether they will be able to catch up to Rocky Boyd. It's going to be a resounding no. And here's Euroshak, shot out of a cannon. The Ford F-150 looks underneath Brandon Hawk. That's for second place.
Yeah, Connor Euroshak continuing to show his muscle that he showed through all of second split in round number 1. He's showing it here tonight as well, and he's going to go to the inside of Brandon Hawk for that second position. He's going to be side by side. He's going to draw even, but Brandon Hawk, he's going to carry that run off the top side in turns 3 and 4, and is going to carry that speed all the way down the front straightaway, as he's going to try to make a chase at Rocky Boyd. Rocky Boyd did end up passing him for the lead, but can Rocky Boyd hang on? How is his long run speed going to hang on? Can he manage that speed? Can he manage his grip up in that clean air? We'll have to wait and see, because I've talked about how important clean air has become with this latest update, but we'll have to see as we continue to run long here, how his long run speed is going to manage. As we hear Blake McCandless is coming to pit road, probably doesn't have the fuel to make it, so he's going to have to pit road. Or he's going to have to come to pit road, which is making me question guys like Quentin Warman and Caden Rush and those guys who stayed out that pitted on lap 50, as well as Blake McCandless.
Well, Blake, we know that in the first run, he was the earliest driver to come down pit road. He is this time around at lap 81 with about 30 laps to go, and he had plummeted through the field, dropped to 17th right before this attempted pit stop. So he comes in without a hitch. He'll get the 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. He'll get the splash of fuel, and he will be confirmed to make it. Everyone else will decide this time by, and there are others. Caden Rush going to be with Blake McCandless the lap after. Rush is in at lap 81.
I don't know if this is a great time to make this announcement. You know, I think it is. As we're talking about green flag pit stops and people moving around in the pit cycle, before anyone had announced they were pitting, Michael P. Frisch, the man who had sat on pole and got a penalty right at the start, is up into the top 15 there just a couple laps ago. So what 2 cautions and a fast truck can do is insane as he moves his way up, trying to get back into the top 10.
Only one finish outside of the top 10 throughout the entirety of round 1 for Michael P. Frisch, and tonight has certainly been a roller coaster. He rides behind Chad McKinley, but of course we still await how this will all cycle out. But as long as Frisch stays where he's at, I think it might just be a solid rebound based on what happened at the initial jump, where he could have been running with the likes of Boyd, Euroshak, Hawk, and Navarro, even Warman, but at the moment he's still trapped beneath the top 15 looking for an outlet. Euroshak looking underneath again. No money, no dice, this time out of turn 4, and I think another driver has potentially came in. Actually, no one does. James Wenzel, though, in the middle of a 3-truck battle. This is just on the inside of the top 10. Ashton Schleiss, and right in the middle, Trevor Huff in the 20, breaking free through the middle.
Breaking through the middle, as you mentioned, but I'm watching this battle for the lead. Here goes Connor Euroshak. He's making a move to the inside of Rocky Boyd. Boyd gonna hang it around his right rear, gonna hang it on his outside lane, trying to get the run, and he's gonna stay side by side, but it's looking like Euroshak has got the faster truck. He's got just much better grip on the longer run, and he's gonna make a move to the inside. Rocky Boyd, he's gonna fight him as hard as he can to keep this lead, keep this clean air. He's gonna pinch him down to the bottom in turns 1 and 2. Rocky Boyd gonna hang it side by side down the back straightaway. Euroshak gonna do a little bit of a side draft. That's gonna bring Brandon Hawk right back into this battle. But down to turns 3 and 4, Euroshak drives it down to turns 3 and 4. He's going to pull a little bit of a slide job, but he's going to have to lift on corner exit. Rocky Boyd trying to make the moves on him, and he's going to go up and block Brandon Hawk. He's going to look back to the outside lane. He's not going to get there. Give the lead to Connor Euroshak for good.
Something we learned about Connor Euroshak through round 1 very quickly is that he always has a fast, long-run truck. And for Euroshak now, he topples the competition, takes over the race lead here with 25 remaining and maybe 1 pit stop to go. We know that several others might take their chances down pit road. So far, it's only been Rush and McCandless on that list. Everyone else is willing to stay out. Navarro fighting against Brandon Hawk. This is for 3rd place. And meanwhile, Alex, look at everyone all the way back there. Agnell Phillip, Quentin Warman, where they've trapped themselves in this battle for 5th with Mitchell Hunt, someone we haven't called out basically all night long for Nexus Esports. He's moved into the top 7, and everyone else falling out of reach for those in the top 5.
Well, these guys going through these positions now is we get more and more spread out. I think we're more spread out in terms of pit strategy than we were, everyone, in the beginning, with those cautions playing a key factor in deciding who should stay, who should stay on the racetrack and who should come down pit road. A couple of changes in that led to some early pit stops, and now Caden Rush is starting to make his way through the field as he blows the doors off everybody with those new tires and fuel. Will it matter in the end? We'll just have to see. He's making his way up as he enters turn 3.
And when we're looking at Caden Rush, Connor Euroshak still the race leader. We talk about round 2, and how it's very different is Navarro actually fell back there. Caden Rush still looking to carve through the rest of the top 5 and unlap himself. You're looking at, of course, the pivot from round 1. You're probably thinking about the finishes at the end of that round, specifically at Charlotte, and looking how to improve in this second round where the competition is much higher. But the blessing in disguise is that when you take a month off and you get in with a fresh batch of drivers in snake split action, you're looking at a chance to re-trajectorize your move through the field and your move up to contender, because, you know, round 1 you have to live with what you get and what you end up having, but in round 2 you can turn your fate around in a moment's notice. And while we're seeing the likes of Euroshak, Andrew Navarro, Brandon Hawk, some of the usuals that we're seeing up front now, you know, round 2 is that pleasant opportunity for guys further back, like a Mitchell Hunt or Ashton Slice, you know, Michael P. Frisch, who went through hell and back now to his position inside the top 10. It's a nice place to reset and then start a new foot entering round 2, and that mentality for a driver certainly means a lot.
Definitely means a lot. These guys having a month off to kind of just take a nice little break and just readjust and just get acclimatized to the new updates. And it looks like some of these guys have taken to it really well. Like we mentioned, Connor Euroshak, no matter what changes they have made to this truck, it hasn't phased in whatsoever, as he is currently leading with 20 laps to go here. And just kind of setting sail, just hoping for no cautions, just hoping to get this thing to the end. And start off with some really good points. Like, just don't forget, the top 20 at the end of this season are going to go through to the Contender Series in the fall at the conclusion of the Coke season. So it's important to run well, it's important to win, but it's important to get those points. Where the points, so I want to mention, is going to be a little bit different, because every position is a point. It's not like the snakes, it's not like the actual like official splits you get where you get a certain amount of points. It's every position on the racetrack is a point. So that's very important that these guys need to consider when racing around each other. It's a little bit different from round 1. It's not a boatload of points. It's just a point per position. So that's something these guys need to think about.
You know, we might end up in a situation, Daniel, to where we're in that final race of round 2 and somebody makes a pass or somebody loses some positions, and all of a sudden you have a big change in who makes the top 20 and who doesn't. I think that'll be really fun once we get down to Homestead of Miami Speedway. But for now, humble beginnings. James Wenzel looking on the inside of Trevor Huckey, attempted a pass for 9th on Quentin Norman, who I imagine, Alex, might be a little frustrated right now given his success earlier on in this race. It felt like he was the overall best truck with this Ryko Ford F-150, but as the cautions have come by and as the strategy is unfolded, Norman has plateaued here at the exit of the top 10. It's been a little tough for him to move his way through the field.
Yeah, and I think once you get back on especially a strategy that doesn't really work so well, you get, you know, backed up between the people here in the middle of the pack, and you're not able to find the speed that you need to kind of cut through up with some people. You start getting frustrated with yourself. You know, you may start to push a little harder than you're really supposed to, and then it's a vicious cycle. Once you do that, you may burn off the right front, the right rear. You could get slower, and then because you get slower, you get more frustrated, and then it just repeats and repeats and repeats. Luckily, though, he's been able to stay within the top 10, so a decent finish for him, more than decent, really, with how this race has gone, although I know he's probably frustrated that he's not within that top 5.
It also comes down to that tire strategy that, Daniel, you were talking about so much throughout this race. Michael P. Frisch, who's on lap 36 of his stint, runs up into 7th. He just got by Ashton Slice, and then behind them is Quentin Warman, who's surviving with what he's got. He's got 8-lap older tires along with Slice. So obviously the tire grip, very different. Tire sets, very different in their strategies. So just a mix of maybe that truck isn't handling the way he wants it to, and the tire situation also isn't helping as well, because that 8-lap advantage for those up at the front, they're occupying first all the way back through 7th. Rocky Boyd moving onwards, looking to defend on Navarro, who attempted that pass down low, and they have brought in Agnew Phillip and Mitchell Hunt, so a fair 6-truck fight with 15 laps to go, but no match right now for Euroshak, who stays put with a 2-3 second advantage. Or rather, Dan, I wanted to talk to you. I thought I heard someone say that we're pitting, and that was
Ashton Slice. Ashton Slice, who is on that strategy, who stayed out, is unfortunately not going to have the fuel to make it. He's coming down.
He spins!
He has spun coming down pit road. I did not see that, but I heard he called over the radio to come to pit road, and trying to get to his pit box, had a little bit of an incident.
Well, this is the look out of turn 4. He slows right in front of Quentin Warman. And there's the spill.
And he's going to miss that. That's going to be a penalty with him hitting the pit cone. And I think he's gonna reverse. Oh, I think he reversed all the way down to his pit box right there.
That's a Kyle move right there.
Dan, I think it was a penalty regardless, considering he had the pit with 15 laps to go.
Yeah, that plus the cone definitely not gonna help his chances. Was having a great run, trying to go off strategy, but unfortunately, it's not gonna work out for him. Definitely not the race he wanted. And even though if you have a rough race tonight, you do have one drop week over the next 7 races. So if you have a bad night tonight, then that's pretty much your mulligan for the season. So it's going to be very vital to be careful the rest of the season if you have any more bad results. And we got a battle for second.
Oh, going off of strategy, I was going to say, is similar to.
Oh,
Charlotte! Into the wall.
Navarro gets a piece of the fence as Rocky Boyd was playing all-time defense. Here comes Brandon Hawk and Agno Phillip down low. The drama building up behind the race leader.
Yeah, so here's what happened. Navarro, he was clear of Rocky Boyd, but Rocky Boyd was not going to be lifting for Navarro right there. Hit him in the bumper, sent him into the fence, and now I'm worried what kind of damage does Navarro had with his truck now, because he took a pretty good lick into the fence right there.
Well, now you got to wonder, as Rocky Boyd, what does Navarro do back? There's still 10 laps to go. It's not the final lap. He couldn't squeak away by it. If Navarro ends up being just as fast or faster, he'll have to look out. And he's trying to get that clean air as much as he can. This could be a worrying situation. And if it breaks down to it, a possible caution, if Navarro deems what Rocky Boyd did to him was enough for a little bit of, they say, get your lick back and get your receipts, we might see that with 10 laps to go.
I am noticing a little bit, or I believe that might be slight right rear damage on the Navarro truck. I'm not exactly sure. But overall, I'm seeing it's overall really clean. I am seeing a little bit of side skirt damage right in front of the right rear wheel. So we'll see how much that's going to affect him for the rest of this race. But overall, I don't think it's hurt him too much. He's still right there hanging with Rocky Boyd trying to get the second spot.
And the results, Connor Euroshak has pulled away. Out of all of that, Navarro gets into the wall, Boyd slows up, and Euroshak is a half a second away from all of these guys with about 9 laps to go. And I wanted to point this out. Biggest losers on the strategy up until now, Caden Rush and Blake McCandless. Their calls to pit road not fruitful at all. Rush stuck back in 24th, Blake McCandless back in 26th as the last truck currently on the lead lap. They anticipated that either everyone would come down following them or that a caution would come out right after that pit stop, leaving them with the chance to stay out for track position alone. However, not the case. We've stayed green up until now. 8 laps remain. Connor Euroshak is telling the field they're not like us. He looks to win for the 3rd time in 2024.
I don't know if we mentioned this, but Quentin Warman has pitted as well. So that's going to be the end of his race, too. Probably the most dominant truck of the night. Seemed like the fastest one in Chicagoland. He has pitted. He's coming off the pit lane right now. This is not going to be a good point tonight for him.
No, definitely not. I think really, unless he gets, by the grace of the iRacing overlords, and he gets a caution here in these last few moments, it looks like all these people who had to come down pit road in the late stage of this race, their race is over. And what a way to take that one drop week in week 1 of the refresh of Road to Pros we had into round 2 at Chicagoland. And that might not be a great start, but then you've got to build on that and hopefully end for a better result. And one person who is building is Michael P. Frisch. Started on pole, is currently 7th. He had gone through a penalty at the start, 2 yellows consecutively almost, and then he ends up in 7th with 6 laps to go as we cross the line. So his drive back up to near the top 5 has been an incredible one to see. He's been sneaky too. He's kind of gone under our noses on his way back up to the front.
And good news for Pete Frisch. He's going to be able to move up to 6th place as long as he can get by Brandon Hawk and maybe have something to say for the likes of Mitchell Hunt and Agno Phillip. We saw Phillip way sideways at the exit of turn 4, and Hunt was able to catch up in the last several laps. So we never know what could transpire. There is still the possibility of a yellow, and I know that the commentator's jinx is always alive and well. I guess me putting it out there might just manifest it somehow, but as of the moment, Connor Euroshak up now by 0.7 of a second and counting. His last lap clocked in at a 32.91. Rocky Boyd, Andrew Navarro, 32.971. So the gap continues to grow slowly. Euroshak has maintained his lead, and he is 4 laps away from his first win of the second round.
4 laps away at the stripe this time. And like we mentioned, Euroshack picking up right where he left off from round 1 down in split 2. And it seems like they have seen some new competition. It hasn't phased them one bit as he's continuing to pull away from Rocky Boyd. Andrew Navarro still holding that 3rd position with Agnell Phillip right behind him in P4. Well, Agnell Phillip, we haven't talked much about him tonight, but it seemed like he was struggling early on. Was able to play some strategy, maybe get some adjustments on that onto his pit stops, and he's now running in the top 5. Right now as we're coming down to the end here, Kenneth. But 3 laps to go. As long as there's no caution, Connor Euroshack is on his way to victory lane.
Well, listen in. Euroshack is clutching and coasting while still in the lead with 3 laps to go. This race might not be over yet because fuel strategy is still in play. So we could have the viable option of someone getting rid of their gas tank and losing fuel at the end. Euroshack is still clutching, holding on to a half a second lead. This is the place where Rocky Boyd and Andrew Navarro can push if they are confident that they can make it all the way to the end. They will breach lap 50 on their stint, Alex. 2 laps to go from Chicagoland.
With 2 laps to go, Connor Euroshack wants to punch his ticket in another win in the first round of Phase 2 of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series. He has just got about 2.5 miles left to conquer in Joliet, Illinois, if he wants to come home with the win. Going through turns 3 and 4, it's going to be coming to the white flag here in split 2 of Road to Pro as Connor Euroshack takes to the white flag as he crosses the line.
Final lap from Chicagoland, gap at 0.8 of a second and remaining. Rocky Boyd so far with nothing to tell Euroshack on what this race will outcome with. And Connor Euroshack has become a very familiar name here on FTN. We covered him a ton at the end and throughout round number 1. He picked up 2 wins there and was one of 7 drivers who picked up 2 wins in the first round, where he's going to be a driver in round 2 with win number 1. Out of turn number 4, Connor Euroshack back to familiar territory, victory lane here in Illinois.
Incredible. Simply incredible. Picking up right where he left off from round number 1. And starts off with a win. Maximum points going to be at the top of the standings when we leave here tonight. As split 1 is still going on. They're finishing up here pretty soon. But no better way to start, right, Alex?
No better way to start than to get a win. But I'll tell you what, I think with about 30 laps to go, I started to say something about it. Handily so, this race went green. And I'd like to say that I may have called the finish to this one. Euroshack, tonight's race winner here in Joliet, Illinois, as all the rest of the field comes to congratulate him. It's been incredible watching him absolutely try and dominate the long runs. And he kind of came as a surprise threat, but really his name should be known as the man to come through in the end. He might be the new closer.
He just might be, and as he wraps around turn 4, gets the congratulations from his fellow drivers, Connor Euroshack, for the first time in round 2, is a race winner, and he gets the checkered flag for the 3rd time in his 2024 Road to Pro campaign, a season that is turning stellar for Euroshack, and we'll talk to him and the others who finish in the top 3 in just several moments. The post-race coverage on the other side, but for now, Connor Euroshack, the winner. We'll take a moment and step aside, but you won't miss any of the coverage of round 2 in this 2024 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series live on FTN.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
welcome back to Chicagoland Speedway, where we have just wrapped up 110 laps of crazy racing here from Joliet, Illinois. But at the end, it is Connor Euroshak grabbing his first win of round 2 in dominating fashion near the end. Rocky Boyd, after starting in 22nd, one of the biggest movers of the night, ends up with a second place finish at the end. Andrew Navarro finished inside the top 5. After starting in the top 5, he is third. We'll try and talk to all 3 of them before we wrap up our coverage tonight on FTN. Mitchell Hunt with a solid top 5 effort. We didn't call his name all that much throughout the night, but it really turned out to be great for Hunt. He ends up with good points at the end of race 1 in round 2. Michael P. Frisch, who started this race on the pole, got a black flag on the initial start, had to pit on lap number 1 of 110, and ever since recuperated to a top 6 run. So Michael P. Frisch escaping a bullet off of what happened at the beginning of this race, and it is a phenomenal comeback for him. I'm sure he's very happy about that. Brandon Hawk ends up in 7th with a very strong race truck. Trevor Huff, who barely got in to round 2 anyway, ends up with a great 8th place running after starting in 27th. James Wenzel for Altus Engineering is 9th. Chad McGinley rounding out your top 10. Then Ryan Andrew and points leader off of round 1, Brian Mercurio, wrapping up the top 12, Alex.
Well, as you move down the list, you see some other familiar names. Kevin Champagne, who started 3rd, fell back down to 13th. Then it's Matt Kosher, and he came up from 34th to get 14th, so up 20 spots. That's a good return on investment, some might say. River Hayes and JT Poole in the mix as well. David Shieldhouse there ends up in 17th. Then it's Max R. Brady, one of the Brady bunch, and Garrison Hogan in 19th. Sander Ditchoff able to recover from his early incident up to 20th. Then it's Michael Van Abel and Colton J. Harvey. Caden Rush, who looked to be in the running with Blake McCandless, they both fall back to 23rd and 24th, respectively.
And then 25th is Joe Armstrong, Ashton Schleiss, Quentin Warman. All these guys, they had to pit late after not getting a caution there, 26 and 27 respectively. Joshua Balliet is 28, Daniel Nanny 29, Dustin Johnson 30th, Nicholas Morse 31st, Michael Bumgarner, Johnny Avila, Logan Helton, all involved with that crash back early on in the first half of the race. That's going to round out our 34 truck field, Kenneth. And I believe we have our race winner.
We are indeed here with the man in victory lane, Connor Euroshak for Nexus Esports. And like I said earlier, Connor, this seems to be familiar territory for you. You've won several times in round 1. We were able to cover that and your several wins throughout the season. You come right back into round 2 swinging for the fences, and you end up knocking the opponents out with this W. What does it feel like to get back to victory and to start off round 2 with an absolute bang?
Yeah, I mean, it feels pretty amazing. I mean, last year I made round 2 and didn't get to compete in it. So to instantly come out in my first ever race and, show that I have what it takes to compete well in this series, I mean, it means a lot to me. And it just gives me a lot of confidence, too, for the whole rest of the season that I can do it.
But a lot of this race was trial and error, of course, with this newly revamped NASCAR Truck Series machines with the aerodynamic update that came our way just several weeks ago on the iRacing service. Chicagoland for the first time here in round 2. I'm sure there were a lot of questions that were being answered as you were going through it, just sort of trial by fire, if you will. What did you learn over the course of this race, and how were you able to dial the truck in to the way it was at the end, how you were able to pull away from Rocky Boyd, Andrew Navarro, Agno Phillip, and the rest of the company behind you?
Yeah, I mean, our team, Nexus Esports, I mean, they put in a lot of work for this, and I mean, I just feel like our group is working like so well right now, and it's just a pleasure to be a part of. And, this Road to Pro race was a little bit hotter than what we tested, and I just felt like that even played to our hand even more. Like the whole race, I felt so much better drive off than everybody, and it really just allowed me to just manage my stuff and keep up. So I mean, iRacing did a tremendous job with this truck update. It's made the racing like astronomically better. It's night and day.
And this is your second 1.5 mile track win in Road to Pro as of 2024. That includes a round 1 after you took your first at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in late February. So now you have to focus on an entirely different schedule. This is a 1.5 mile tonight at Chicagoland, but you've got Pocono next, Lucas Oil, Watkins Glen, and the list goes on from there. How do you and your team, especially after this monumentous win, push forward, continue that consistency, and try to enter contender later on in the year?
Yeah, I just think this gives our whole group confidence. Like, I mean, starting off this strong, I just feel like we can just keep building on this every week and keep getting better and better. I still feel like our group has more to offer.
Well, Connor, it's a big win tonight from Chicagoland. Before we let you bounce, anybody in particular you want to give the shout out or thanks to?
Actually, I had some spotters on the stand. I had Seb and Zach and just my whole Nexus team. I want to thank them all. It wouldn't be possible without them.
Well, Connor, I think we've been calling your name a lot throughout 2024, and it seems to stay the same in round 2. We've enjoyed having you be a familiar face in the broadcast booth at the end of these events. Connor, congratulations on the W here from Chicagoland, and looking forward to you taking on Pocono with the Tricky Triangle in just 2 weeks.
Yeah, let's keep it rolling. Thanks, guys.
Connor Euroshak, one of the hottest drivers in Road to Pro right now. His third win of 2024, his first of the second round. We turn over to the second place finisher, and it was a surprise at the end, but a strong run nonetheless, Alexander, for Rocky Boyd in the 26.
Rocky, just explain to me, how were you able to make a comeback that strong? Those two constants certainly helped, but all the way up to get to the lead and then all the way to keep and lock in second place. Tell me how you did it.
Team. John Jones and Jesse Kaplan brought me a really good car today, and I didn't even have to drive the car; it drove itself, so made my job a lot easier. It was just so fast that we were up front, and we looked like we belonged there.
I'd say so as well. Whenever you got up there towards the end, you got a bit of a scuffle there with Navarro, but you had to hold your own against the number 42, and he's next on the list for interview. But maybe before we get to him, what was it like, sort of going kind of toe to toe with him and trying to battle it out?
Yeah, it was fun racing him. I didn't mean to get him out of 2 that one time. He threw the slider late, and I tried to cut low, but I clipped his left rear and it hooked him to the right. I'm glad he was still able to finish third. I didn't want to wreck him for it. I mean, it would have been dumb if I wrecked him for that, knowing it's a long season and we're points racing. But I was just trying to make sure my guys got the best finish we could today, and I think we managed to do that.
I'd say so as well. Well, you come home in that second place position. Obviously, you said you have a big team and a lot of people to, get to name here. So you have some time with us here in the booth. Is there anyone else you'd like to say? Anything else you want to say? Anyone else you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I want to thank All Seeing Motorsports. They came on for this race for me and my teammate Trevor. So I hope they were proud of the run we gave them, and I want to thank Pro Sim Shots for helping me out with my promotional stuff on social media and getting me some screenshots to post every week. I can't thank those two enough, and just can't thank the rest of the guys at JRS Racing for helping bring us a fast number 16 Chevrolet Silverado.
Well, you come home in second on a strong run here in Road to Pro Phase 2 as we move on to the second round. Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on getting second.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And that was Rocky Boyd there in the second position. And the man that's just behind him is next up, waiting with Daniel Falkingham.
Yeah, and I'm here with the third place finisher rounding out the podium, Andrew Navarro. Andrew, it was a hard-fought third place for you there, and you looked strong early on. It seemed like you faded with all the strategy going on, but you came back to third. Tell us about the race.
Yeah, the first run, just way too loose. We kind of built it to be good on the short fuel, because 110 laps, we were going to be in that weird window. Never ended up panning out to do that, which kind of sucked in our favor. But it was just one of those things that, you tried to stay up front all race long, and different strategies, a lot of different strategies, under that first yellow. And I think we played it right. I think we had one of the fastest cars once the track actually rubbered in, especially towards the end. I don't know if I would have been able to have anything for Euroshack, but I felt like I could have got around Rocky. I just had to throw a slider. I thought I threw a clean slider. He just told me he misjudged it. So, I mean, if he did or not, it's whatever. But I'm going to take his word for it. Rocky's always raced me clean, and I've always raced him clean. So I don't think that was any ill intention there. But yeah, just a very interesting race. I like the 110 laps at a mile and a half. It gives you a little bit more time, and you can actually pit and stuff instead of just doing one pit stop or saving to make it a one stop. So that's always nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, let's just talk about this race in general. This was our first Road to Pro race with the latest update with the truck. How did you feel with the latest update? I know you all have been doing a lot of prep over the last month getting ready for this race, but how did you feel overall, and what are your initial thoughts?
I really like the package. I felt like I've probably I kind of messed up. I didn't really start working on Chicago until this very week. So I was definitely a little bit behind in the first few C opens. And then I kind of found something and then knew I wanted to run it in here. And I think it spread everybody out a little bit, but there's definitely, I think they can tweak on it a little bit with dirty air, because in some of the C opens in colder weather, we're still packed up a lot, but I really enjoyed it. So, it's one of those things that we don't really get a long green flag run usually anymore. So, that was nice to actually have. And I think that is because of the car with the update. So.
Yeah, for sure. And well, this one race down, 6 to go. We head to the Tricky Triangle at Pocono next in 2 weeks' time. Your initial thoughts as we get ready for race number 2?
Yeah, Pocono won there last year. I don't know how much of that is going to carry over. I think it may be a fuel mileage race. I don't know entirely, but yeah, always a fun race there. Good amount of draft and then a good amount of dirty air there. So, but just really want to shout out everybody on the car, Celebrity X Cruises, Premier Racing Setups, Martin Sports, 7Cs, my family downstairs. My dad actually is on a cruise, so he'll probably watch this in the morning. Everybody on the team, Kenny for being on the box and keeping me calm. But yeah, really fun one.
Yeah, for sure. I got some shout outs out there. Glad you could say hi to all your people, and it looks like it's going to be another strong season for you as you look to get back to contender for the 3rd year in a row. Andrew, thanks for the time as always, and we will see you at Pocono in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
That is Andrew Navarro bringing it home in 3rd place, Kenneth, and what a wild race to kick off the first race of round number 2, and looks like it's going to be another exciting season.
It really was, and to see all the trials, the tribulations, and all the excitement that we had, the drivers had, the teams had, to find out exactly what this new truck package did to the iRacing service and how it was going to end up in eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series competition. I'm sure, Alex, that it did not disappoint, but I think all things stay the same, and it comes full circle. Connor Yuroshak, the winner once again.
Absolutely. I was right on the money. Chicagoland, one of my favorite tracks on the service, bringing home a phenomenal race here in the opening round of Phase 2 of Road to Pro. And I could say that might be one of the greatest Road to Pro races I've ever seen. Got a couple of cautions to spike up the action, but the action almost rode itself. A lot of these guys trying to fight for that new clean air advantage that we really haven't seen before, that major spike and how much of an advantage it was seeing these guys battle. This package is going to be a game changer for Road to Pro, bringing on this exciting level of action here for the rest of the series. I'm excited to see what comes next.
Saw a lot of drivers find success here at Chicagoland, but Daniel, you find those that on the other side of the spectrum, the Daniel Nannies, the Logan Heltons, the Blake McCandless, Caden Rushes of the world, whether it be through strategy or through big crashes in the middle of the race, they have a pretty tough hole they have to dig out of come 2 weeks' time in Pocono, and this is going to be a very different schedule like we've said many times. Chicagoland might just be one of the more normal tracks on this schedule. Pocono's next up, the Tricky Triangle. Your thoughts on that for the field?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, a lot of these guys struggling tonight, but a lot of it really was through no fault of their own, just getting caught up in wrecks and stuff, as we saw that big one very early on in the race. But that's probably going to be their one mulligan for the season, as they do have one drop week, but they got to be careful the rest of the season. But going to Pocono in 2 weeks' time, I'm interested to see how it's going to race. I wonder how it's going to play, like with the draft, which is how the handling of the trucks, how traffic's going to be, whether clean air is going to be important. Yeah, we're not going to probably. It's interesting to see what kind of race we're going to see. Probably not like what we saw tonight, where we saw a lot of people getting to move around the racetrack, running right up on the fence, right to the bottom. Might be a little bit different, but I'm interested to see what we're going to see at Poco in 2 weeks' time. But overall, right now, we have a very good start to round number 2, and I'm looking forward to see what the next 6 races bring us.
Fireworks in Chicago. We head to the Tricky Triangle in Long Pond, Pennsylvania in 2 weeks' time. That'll be July 11th at Pocono Raceway on the virtual side. That comes your way at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on the FTN YouTube channel. We move onwards to Lucas Oil Raceway, or otherwise known as IRP, Watkins Glen, Milwaukee Mile, Rockingham, and then closing out round 2, looking to decide those 20 that move on to Contender in South Florida at Homestead Miami Speedway. Just a quick reminder just before we wrap up the show that if you want to keep up with all of the latest news and developments surrounding the world of eNASCAR, you can scan that QR code on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen and get up to date with everything, including this series, the Contender Series set to take place later this fall, and the current ongoing 2024 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series season. You can also keep up with how you can get your sim racing career started today with iRacing, the official simulation partner of NASCAR. That'll do it for us here in virtual Chicagoland. On behalf of everyone at FTN and David Kreutz for making this all possible and helping us get this show on the air, and for all of us on the broadcast tonight, for my colleagues in the booth, Alexander Balderas and Daniel Falkingham, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying so long from Chicagoland. We'll see you in Pocono in 2 weeks' time for the second race of round 2.